Mr. Chairman, according to a Gallup poll taken during last summer's protests and riots, 67% of Americans want police to spend the same amount of time in their communities as they do now. 81% of African Americans want police to spend the same amount or more time in their communities. Since then, violent crime rates are higher today than they were then. I think it's clear that Americans of all races overwhelmingly want the police in their communities to protect them. But, Mr. Green, based on some of your public statements, it's pretty clear you don't share that view. And given the hostility to the police expressed in some of those statements, my concern is that Americans, including those living in public housing, could reasonably doubt whether you'll advocate for policies at HUD that'll keep them safe. So, for instance, in an article that you wrote for the Urban Institute in June of 2020, you advocated for, and I quote, recapturing funding from the police, end quote, and then you went on to describe other purposes to which it could be put, such as community arts and cultural institutions. Recapturing funding from the police sure sounds like defunding the police to me. You went on in that same article to argue that, and I quote, too many families of color live in neighborhoods endangered by over-policing, end quote. So is it still your view that the police endanger people of color in the communities that they protect?
Thank you for the question, Ranking Member Toomey, and for the opportunity to elevate some of my past research. I want to emphasize that blog post, in that blog post, we were sharing the findings of evidence-based strategies to improve neighborhoods through investments and to expand upward mobility by addressing disparities in access to neighborhoods. We did not advocate for defunding the police.
Okay, well, so ordinary English language certainly suggests that you did. There's a tweet that you put out where it appears that you cut and pasted from another article, and what you cut and pasted was, and I'm quoting now, here's another idea. Imagine if the money used to pay the salaries of police officers who endlessly patrol public housing buildings and harass residents can be used to fund plans that residents design to keep themselves safe. No more money for the police. That's what you tweeted. But then you replied to your own tweet in which you said also at NFG_org and at Funders for Justice, these are two notorious anti-police organizations, had it right all along. So it's really, really hard to suggest that somehow you have no animosity towards law enforcement. Ms. Green, some of your statements and tweets suggest a similar concern for me. In one case, you retweeted a post, which I think we have a picture of the tweet, and in it, the police officers are described as, and I quote, the people killing us. Is that your view that that's a fair way to describe law enforcement, the people killing us?
That is not my view, and I regret retweeting that.
But you did. And other tweets that you've sent out have thematically been very similar, so it causes us to wonder about what your views are regarding law enforcement. Mr. Uwegiel, you confirmed to my staff, I believe, that the CFPB regularly updates Mr. Chopra on what's happening at the CFPB. Is that correct?
Thank you for the question, Ranking Member. That is correct.
Okay. Who at the CFPB does that updating?
At the CFPB, at the CFPB, that is generally done by the staff, career staff, who provide that information to the nominee. I should clarify, though, that I am not appearing before the committee in my role as acting director.
That's fine. But I'm still interested in knowing what kinds of CFPB activities are Mr. Chopra updated on.
In that matter, we consulted very early on when he was nominated with our general counsel for the appropriate guidelines for engaging with nominees. That includes news of the day, but we are totally in compliance with the guidance from our general counsel.
Has he been updated on any personnel matters?
No, sir.
Yeah, okay. And presumably he has opinions and thoughts about the agency that he is slated to run. Has he provided feedback on policy matters there?
Oh, thank you for the question. Just the opportunity to clarify, all of the decisions that I have made as acting director of the CFPB have been mine, and they have not been Mr. Chopa's.
I didn't ask you that. I asked whether he has provided his input on policy matters.
No, sir.
Okay, last point, and this is just for the record, I just want to stress, I sent you a letter requesting information relating to allegations about career civil servants being removed from the CFPB in order to be replaced with political loyalists. You responded in writing, but you did not provide any of the records that we requested. You didn't even provide the equivalent of what someone would get if they made a FOIA request. And that could be redacted to hide any personally identifiable or otherwise exempted information. This is not acceptable, and it gives me serious concern about how responsive you'll be to congressional requests in the future. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.